before a presiding officer to be in a position to judicially adjudicate either in favor or not. With regard to the history of this matter, it was quite clear, as I also ruled earlier in the week, that further delays in this matter would not be easily granted. On Tuesday morning, Mr. Palani knew that, and I'd also been told already on Tuesday that he was going to ask for a postponement for one workstation who had apparently been in Mpumalanga, if I remembered correctly. I indicated to him in chambers that he'd better prepare properly and come with proper reasons so that I could apply my mind and adjudicate judiciously. On the basis that Mrs. Workstation, Elsje Workstation, would be called to testify, I provisionally also allowed Exhibit F, although Mr. Majavu vehemently objected again. And although I did not peruse the content of the document by merely glazing at it, one could see that there were lots of documents as annexure referred to in it as some audit internal investigation, of which those exhibits did not or were not appended to Exhibit F. Clearly was a document of a lot of information that she had investigated with mostly regard to documents, and would probably come down to hearsay evidence or many other witnesses of where those documents arrived from. Be that as it may, I allowed it provisionally on the basis that he would call her. At the end of his case, when he applied for the postponement, Mr. Palani told me that his witness would only be available on the 11th of January and requested or applied for such postponement. Mr. Majavu once again vehemently objected and also indicated the history of all the delays in the matter, and also that he didn't come cheaply, if I remember correctly. Be that as it may, the point is there are many people's rights that must be taken into consideration, and with requesting an indulgence, it was clear that the application did not meet those grounds because they never existed. I have no idea why she couldn't come, whether they did try and get her, whether some due processes were served on her, I have no idea. Be that as it may, on the basis that the application for postponement for testimony was refused, I finally now rule that Exhibit F is disallowed. That brings me to the evaluation of the evidence. I carefully considered each and every one of those witnesses' testimony. I had the privilege of seeing them here testifying. I also had the privilege to see how they conveyed their evidence, and cautiously evaluated each and every one of them in the manner and the method which they conveyed whatever they tried me to accept. I must say that I never had any impression that any of them were bad in the sense of intentionally lying or trying to manipulate any one of us here. With regard to the first three witnesses, I can only say that I was impressed with Mr. Bompasu's evidence. When he had to concede, he conceded, and when he didn't know, he told this hearing so. Same goes from Lorraine Francois. And I must say I was quite impressed by Mr. Motlenyane Dipoko. He came over very calmly, didn't try to act. He testified chronologically about his whole refrain. And I could clearly see his embarrassment when he for the first time saw the details in charge 3. I have no doubt that whatever Mr. Dipoko or Francis or Mr. Mabasu told me is correct. The fourth witness, Mr. Koma, was a character of his own. I must say he was a gentleman with a long history in the SABC and a reputable identity in himself. He impressed me, and I could see that he was a person that had a lot of respect in the past. I got the impression that he basically came to tell us that he was heartbroken and that he had suffered severe disappointment. Be that as it may, I'm not called upon to adjudicate whether he would have been acquitted or not at the time when he resigned before the disciplinary hearing. The mere allegation that Motsweni might have told him that he's going to fire him, he himself admitted many DC's people get acquitted and many get convicted. He couldn't say. But he had made his mind up at the time that he was thinking, because his mother had passed on and he was just under too much pressure. And I got the impression that he actually told us that he should never have resigned. Be that as it may, he never directly or indirectly indicated that Mr. Motsweneng was instrumental to his disciplinary hearing. He couldn't take the matter any further, that he went to the public protector basically because of a constructed dismissal, but not because he was purged by Motsweneng. What is quite interesting is that he failed to answer when he was confronted with what Dipoko had said with regard to Phil Molefe. He elected not to answer. The last witness was Paul Tarty. The impression I got from Mr. Tarty is what he was a responsible man. He actually indicated that he was a commissioner at the CCMA and he was a senior gentleman in the society and had come a long way since 1996 with the SABC. What concerns me, however, is that how he started his evidence. Gave me the impression that him as a lawyer and a chairman or presiding officer in various matters needed to place something on record with regard to the contract he has with the SABC, and that he doesn't take lightly to it with the words that he used. To be intimidated by making certain allegations with regard to some investigations that might ensue. I quote from his testimony. This was his examination in chief by Mr. Palani. Mr. Tarty, where are you employed at the current moment? Chair, I am practicing attorney, practicing for own account. Were you ever in your life got employed by the SABC? Chair, if I might make a request before I go into that, details of my testimony, and I said yes. Then Mr. Tarty said, it may sound irrelevant at the beginning, but there is a point which I need to make, which has a bearing on the proceedings. I am a member of a closed corporation in Centurion called Nkoka Training. This company, and then it's intervened. He then testified, yes, I am a member of the closed corporation. This closed corporation, Chair, provides technical training services. We train broadcast engineers for the broadcast industry. One of our clients is the SABC. I have been 2 years ago in 2012 coming on to 2013 to negotiate a 3-year contract with the SABC. And that contract is coming to the end, to its end at the end of 2016, which is next year. Chair, I am. 2 weeks ago, I was requested to avail myself to testify in these proceedings, and I have since learned from the HR person who negotiated the contract with me, together with others, that she now been placed on suspension for alleged irregularities relating to this contract. I see it as I do not understand why the SABC would behave in this way. If one has regard to the fact that I am here to actually provide information on what I know about this matter, on this matter before you, the only inference I can make from what has happened is that there is an attempt to intimidate me. I do not take kindly to it. Close the quote. Mr. Tarty came over well, he was calm, responsible, but there are some issues around his evidence which bothers me. I quote from the record, when he was appointed in Bloemfontein. Now, bearing in mind that what Mr. Kloppers testified is he, at the time of before 94, even in 1993, was tasked to vigorously, he testified, implement transformation. And it was in the eastern side of the Free State, and he had no problems except in Bloemfontein. They were reluctant to transform. And what more is, notwithstanding the fact that he had directed them to Mr. Motsweneng, who was a young, talented man, eager, and had already been employed on a stringer or freelance basis, was paid by the SABC, and they should utilize his services, specifically at the time in 93, 94, 95, when all the pressure was on the SABC to transform. Interestingly, Mr. Tarty comes from Bloemfontein. And there was something very interesting he testified. When he started off with his testimony. Going to quote from the record. Once again, led in chief by Palani, Mr. Palani. Mr. Tarty answers, I was employed as the HR consultant in the SABC Free State in Bloemfontein. This was in 1st of March 1996. What were your responsibilities there? Chair, my responsibility included providing HR support to the different SABC businesses units that were housed at the Free State office. To develop an HR strategy to support the business, to control an HR budget, to also supervise the activities of one staff member who worked under the Marie Swanepoel, and basically to provide a generalized HR service which included training and development, labor relations, resolution of labor relations, problems, and so on, and issues. Do you know the man that is sitting in the middle between? I will point at the witness sitting on the middle. In the middle, my microphone cannot see. You refer to Mr. Motsweneng. Yes. I know him very well. He is one of the staff members who was employed at the SABC at the time in Bloemfontein. Yes. What are his name? I used to call him Hlaudi, but he is Hlaudi. Thank you. I, in fact, never knew he had an English name, because I just never addressed him as such by his English name. I have always called him Hlaudi. Question. During Mr. Motsweneng's employ at the SABC and your employer, how was your relationship? It was actually very good for good and long period of time, or rather for the entire period that I was in the Free State. We had a very good relationship. He used to refer to me as Tonagolo. Tonagolo? Yes, it means premier or president or something. He saw me as a leader and such, and that he is, and how he is used to me. I jump a little bit in the record and I go to the following and I quote again. Chair, if I might just ask to give you some background, after I arrived in Bloemfontein, Marie Swanepoel told me about the outstanding form. I mean matric certificate. I had then planned my week in that first week to meet with all businesses, unit managers, to understand their issues, to understand their strategy, and to ask them to tell us as human resources how we can support them. The manager for radio news at the time was a lady called Helena Botha. And when I met with Helena, one of the things that she left me with, said to me, Paul, we have employed a junior reporter from Kwakwa. He said he's got a matric certificate. We have now spent a year asking him for his matric certificate. He's not submitted it, and hereafter I requested Mr. Motswaneng to attend at my office. And I close brackets. That now brings me to Exhibit E, the application form that is referred to for employment. I provisionally admitted this document, and Mr. Mojavu and everybody had addressed me on whether I should allow it finally or not. I think it's important that I first place on record, which I have in front of me, in detail, which is important. One should not forget that this document should derive from Bloemfontein, where the people were reluctant to appoint people who did not have matric certificates. And we should also remember what Mr. Kloppers told us, is notwithstanding whatever Bloemfontein wanted, at very high level Mr. Motswaneng appointment was accepted without a matric certificate because of the time that transformation was most important. It was never the testimony of Mr. Kloppers that Motswaneng was conditionally appointed on the basis that he gets a matric certificate. It was clear to me in his evidence that it was abandoned. The document Exhibit E is firstly a photocopy. And you don't have to be a handwriting expert to see that the different pages have different handwritings on. There's one page here, and it's also not clear to me whether it is in chronological order. There's one M. Swanepoel that signed on page 247 of whatever record this was, dated the 15th of February 95, confirming the commencement date on the 1st of March 95. What is suspicious is that there are certain blocks on these documents that you can't see. They are faded and then others are clear. Furthermore, there's black big letters written in another handwriting again. Outstanding now, matric certificate 3/95. That is suspicious to me with regards to the testimony of Mr. Kloppers. It was common knowledge in the SABC up to the highest levels that a matric certificate was not outstanding. At no stage and no document placed before me was there any indication that his permanent employee was subject to obtaining a matric certificate. The first person who spoke about that was Mr. Tarty. Mr. Tarty confronted Mr. Motswaneng after Mrs. Botha, Helena Botha, when he got there, told him about the man that didn't have a matric certificate. I find it very strange that neither Mrs. Botha or Botha nor Mrs. Swanepoel were called to come and put light on this matter with regards to this document. What bothers me further is on all the pages, there's nothing at the bottom, but on one of the pages is a brand marking of Ingang printers, which is on none of the other pages. And lastly, but not the least, is the last page in this chronology, which refers to work history of the so-called applicant. This is neat and clean. Whilst we know that that cannot be true, it was Mr. Motswaneng, because previously he had been a stringer with the SABC. Previously he had been a freelancer with the SABC. I fail to understand why this was not filled in, had he been the author, because I cannot see why he would not have filled that in. Be that as it may, even if I'm wrong with regard to my perceptions of this document, I have no idea who filled it in. It was for the employer to prove that, or whoever the author of the information on this document was, to presume or to accept a speculation. It is not for the employee to speculate where this document arises from. Obviously, he could have come and told me, but surely he first has that burden to rebut when there's sufficient evidence before me to say, where does this information come from? Who filled these forms in? There is a Swanepoel here. There is a Boertes who informed Mr. Tarty. They don't get called. I'm not here to speculate who the author or why this document should be ruled as authentic. Clearly, to me, in my view, this document doesn't meet the standards of documentary evidence to be accepted as authentic. And even if I said, and if I'm wrong in this regard, whatever is enrolled on here can never be accepted, because there are so many various versions of where this could have been derived from. Probably could be Mr. Motswaneng, could be Mrs. Swanepoel, could be Mrs. Boertes, could be Mr. Jan Olivier. I don't know. Consequently, in the premises, I therefore refuse to finally accept this document, and I dismiss or lift the provisional acceptance of Exhibit E. Having said that, I think I need to make special reference of Mr. Alwyn Klopper's testimony. He was the witness that impressed me the most. He was calm and sometimes got agitated, but the way in which he presented himself, not only on national TV with regard to one of the exhibits he had submitted to me in evidence, Exhibit Q, he alluded to many things and could not understand why the public protector invited him. He could not understand why Mr. Tarty didn't invite him. He had been there for many, many years, since 1977. He had recruited Mr. Motswaneng. He saw talent in him, and he had fought up to the highest level to have him there. Nobody recalled him to the public protector. Notwithstanding his public appearances on national TV and on court papers, nobody listened to him. He thought it his duty to come and testify in this inquiry or hearing, to tell the public what had transpired at the time. As I've indicated previously in this ruling, I find it suspicious that at the time when Bloemfontein was reluctant with the transformation at the time, especially under the leadership of Mr. Jan Olivier, that these two ladies influenced Mr. Tarty, perhaps wrongfully, perhaps Mr. Tarty never knew. But however, I accept the evidence of Mr. Kloppers as the correct version. Mr. Tarty had been influenced by people at the time who knew that he didn't need a matric certificate and conveyed information to Tarty which was not correct. I therefore weigh the value of Mr. Klopper's evidence as the more probable and more acceptable evidence of what had happened or transpired at the time. With regard to the charges that Mr. Motswaneng stands to be adjudicated upon, it is clear with regards to charge 3 starting from the back that the evidence of Mr. Motlanyane Dipoko fatally flaws that charge in all spheres. The one that came the closest to having perhaps Mr. Motswaneng answer on that was Mr. Koma. But even if you evaluate his evidence with regard to Mr. Dipoko, it is crystal clear that there was none of these allegations ever present as more fully set out in charge 3. With regards to charge 2, I fail to understand why that charge was ever put to Mr. Motswaneng. Suffice to say that I just got informative evidence from the in-camera witnesses with regard to that charge. Nobody testified why Mr. Motswaneng got the job as set out more fully in the charge. I have no clue why he was charged with that charge of any evidence that was placed before me. Charge 1 is the one that has more meat around it. And there are various witnesses that looked at Exhibit E, as I've already dismissed, and that of Mr. Tarty. The only person that really points a finger to him is Mr. Tarty. I have already indicated that the evidence conveyed to this hearing by Mr. Tarty is probably suspicious in regard to what he was told by people in Bloemfontein at the time who was clearly lying to him. I can only make an adverse inference with regards to why they were not called. It's probably because they had nothing to say with these kind of issues that Mr. Tarty raised. With regards to the failure of Mr. Motswaneng to testify, Mr. Palane requested me with various case law that I should draw an adverse inference from that. I agree with Mr. Majavu. Had Exhibit E had more evidential value, I would have certainly have drawn an adverse inference if he failed to come and explain if it had been proved that he was the author of that document or either the information contained in that document. I cannot draw such an inference when there's not sufficient evidence before me. The evidence that he led in his matter with Mr. Kloppers is impressive and credible. I therefore find, finally, the following with regard to charges 1 to 3. Mr. Motswaneng is discharged from charges 1 to 3. Thank you, gentlemen. That will then be the end of this hearing. Thank you for the time. You are excused.
Hey, I'm trying to make that listen. Can I send you the script now? Sure. Yes, yeah, I'm sending you the script right now. Get out.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Praveen until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man